Shalom and good morning. How are you doing today? I thought I'd like to talk about something that I think would be good to kind of like try to work on, maybe a few videos of this sort. Working about the psychology aspect of how people argue and how they do things. And so I want to focus on deflective aspects of how people argue. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I'm sure many of you out there have experienced these kind of things, but you were like yourself probably thinking, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know what to do. I feel like my argument just fell apart. I feel like I just completely got caught up in this thing, and it's just everything I was saying just like fell down the window and just kind of got flopped. And so I want to encourage you about this. I'm going to major on 3 points of what people do as a deflective, and how to even defeat the deflection, and know how to actually argue against the deflection so that you yourself can overcome people that actually try to use this deflective statements in order to try to shoot you down or try to shut you up. So one of these things I want to focus on is the fact of there's going to be 3 arguments that people are going to use specifically, that you're going to hear a lot, especially when you're trying to talk about the truth and you're trying to reveal the biblical truth about, our faith, our belief, what the Torah says, what the Torah teaches, what the Brit Chadashah says, what the Brit Chadashah teaches. And the first one is, you're not God. Okay? When a person says you're not God, this is a deflective statement. And the reason why they're using this deflective statement from listening to you is because they're trying to catch you off guard. It's a very deep spiritual thing that is so unbeknown to the person when they're speaking this, because Satan's speaking out of their mouth. This is a satanic argument that's being said. And so what's happening is, when a person thinks this is logical, I'm going to say this, they don't understand what the source and what the real issue is behind how and why is it that they're saying this. So when they sit there and say to you, like, you're not God, the first thing that a person thinks is, of course I'm not God. Okay, now I feel kind of tripped up and stuff, and I'm going to have to start standing the ground of, like, I'm a human being, I make mistakes, I have errors and stuff like that, only God in heaven's perfect. The reason why they use this deflective statement is because the enemy is trying to get you stumped from being able to continue talking about the truth. And it's a deflective statement that the enemy uses, because what happens is, when people hear that statement, immediately it's like all of a sudden the whole conversation takes a dive. You're having to think that you're having to defend why you're a human being and why you're not God, and having to stand this mental ground of, like, oh my gosh, and stuff like that. I would never dare try to pretend I'm God. And so it really gets you jumbled up. And so the best thing to do in this situation is to say, that's a really deflective statement. Right now what you're doing is, you're uncomfortable about the fact that what you're hearing is the truth, or that you're hearing is contradicting things that you believe, and you're struggling with this, and you're using this argument to deflect from the situation of what's being said, so that you can minimize what's being said, so that therefore you can ultimately say that, because I'm a human being, and because you want to try to get me to admit that I have faults and failures like every human being has, you can therefore justify why you don't need to listen, and why you don't need to hear it, and why what I'm saying is not going to be rejected as falsehood. Because if the guy can get you to sit there and focus upon you being a human making errors, therefore it's an error what you're saying, and why should I have to listen to you? That's one of the arguments. Another argument you're going to hear is, you think you're the only person who knows the Bible. It's the same tactic, right? It's the same tactic. And what they're doing here is the same thing. They're trying to get you to sit there and think about what they're saying. And so you have to realize these things, that when they say these things, this tactic is meant to get you away from the topic. It's an attitude that's trying to get you to get refocused upon your errors, your mistakes, you being a human being, you lacking things and stuff, so that the topic can be looked at as if it's not valid, it's not important, it's not real. Okay? And the third one, you think you know it all. That's the other one. You think you know it all. You think you know everything, right? And so you notice that 3 of these things have the same thing in common. It's a tactic used to try to get people to shut up. It's a tactic used to divert what's happening and confuse the situation so that you're made to think and feel that you have to somehow defend yourself now in a way that's now pulling at that you have errors in your life, that you make mistakes like every human being. And you have to understand this is stuff like, when they use these words, you think you're perfect, you think you're God, you think you know everything, all that's happening is trying to stop and trying to divert the belief that what you're saying is true, or that what you're saying is because these people haven't investigated enough, haven't studied enough, haven't researched enough, and because of their inferior feelings, because they feel very low in the way they feel, and because they have this very lack of attitude towards what's taking place, and because they're overwhelmed by the fact of their insecurities and stuff, they're attacking you, and they're doing this in a very deceptive way that they themselves are not really conscious to. And this is the very thing that you need to understand. So don't let people break you down, get caught up. Learn how to defend and learn how to defeat these things. And like I said, there is a way to defeat these things. All you have to sit there and focus on is realizing this guy's really insecure. He's trying to deflect from the fact of, how is it possible that you could know so much truth? How is it possible that you can have so much knowledge of the Bible, that you can really understand things that God's Word says? And all you have to sit there and say is, this is the deflective tactic you're using. You're deviating from the point. You're acting in this way because all it is you're bothered by what I'm saying. And instead of looking at it and listening to it and taking the time to go back and look at it for yourself to see what's the truth and why this is true and stuff like that, you're utilizing these things to try to discredit me as a person. And this is a tactic used to try to put people off the subject and discredit and try to completely remove what's being said from being the topic. Hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next time. God bless.